welcome to another exciting episode of Tokencast interviews. I'm your host and sometimes referee, the friendly neighborhood Zach Stat Pearson, and today I'm joined by he whose fur never balls, even though he's balling, a one Static.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. All right, Static Radio, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where they can find you?
Sure. So, I'm Bob Lament at Static Radio, and I've done a show on the internet at staticradio.com for about 25 years now.
And also one of
Go figure, right?
Yeah. And by default, making him one of the earliest podcasters to exist in the USA. That is definitely impressive.
Yeah. So podcasting actually is 20 years old this year. So they started journalists coined the term back in 2004, in roughly around September. And my co-host and I, we've been doing a show for about 5 years ahead of that. And it was called Internet Radio at the time, hence the name Static Radio, because that was kind of the thing at the time. Now, I mean, no one talks about radio in reference to podcasting because it's its own thing now. So the radio part's just a holdover from back in the days when things were called Internet Radio.
Hey, branding is branding.
Yeah, but I've got everything with that name now, so I don't know. Changing is not going to be an easy task at this point. So we just run with it. What the heck, right? So, but yeah, it's been a wild ride. I can tell you that. I mean, basically the whole show started in college, where Miles and I used to do a college radio show, and we called it Static, and we did that for a couple of years in college. We graduated, and we were kind of missing the fun. And I said, hey, this internet thing, we could do it over there. And he goes, yeah, whatever. And so we started up doing it on the internet. We'll be finishing our 25th year on January 1st. We call it our official date was January 1st, 1999. And but we actually did our first show on Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving in 1998, just to test it out, because the
pilot.
This is all new stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to test some things out, did a few test shows, but by the time January rolled around, we were kind of in the groove and doing it every week and kind of producing things regularly. So that's why I say that's when it started. But the interesting thing is, that was the age of Napster. And so we used to play music on the college show, couldn't play music on the internet at that time because everybody was getting sued. And so basically we boiled it down to, we basically do stories each week, hopefully funny stories, most of the time. And so that's what the show became because of, litigious society that we lived in, and people at Napster, or the people at the record company suing everybody because of Napster, back in the day. So I was like, they were suing grandmas and stuff. I'm like, I don't want to be any part of that. Come on.
Yeah,
that sounds terrible.
They were sending SWAT into artists that were even doing mixtape. That shit was crazy.
Right? Yeah, they were swatting people. You remember swatting people? I mean, I don't know that happens so much anymore, but yeah, that was kind of a thing back in the day where people would, send the police to your house for various infractions while you were online, and the good old days. Maybe not.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. It's always nice to see, a podcast with a similar aura to mine, because we didn't start off doing comical life stories. That kind of came up just because we realized, even though we had set topics in pop culture we would talk about in the early days, like back when we were on Skype, we noticed that sometimes people would have these hilarious stories, or they would go on tangents and we'd have to stop them, but we still wanted to hear the story once we were done recording. And then eventually we ended up making life stories. And don't get me wrong, most of the life stories are mine, but they're not mine because I'm the only one with stories or I'm just some dictator. It's because I tell everybody, look, all you got to do is change some names around and make the setting not the original setting, and you can still tell your story. And there, some people just too
Oh
scared to do it,
yeah.
and they'll still be scared to do it. I'm like, are you serious? No one's gonna find you. But at the same time, I understand it to some extent because now there's a difference between you telling a life story and someone perceiving themselves as being shit talked online for profit.
Ah.
But it's not even
Oh,
really.
there you go.
Yeah, but also, it's not really profit. Like I think the most I've
Right.
made off of YouTube in 1 year is like $8. And also,
Yeah.
I'm technically a team player, so how am I going to divide $8 between like 11 people?
Well, then you just everybody gets 50 cents, and then you throw the rest into a kitty, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The
So that's right around our wheelhouse anyway. But in particular, we're going a little bit unique with this one. So normally we have a guest come over and we interview them, but in your case, it's more like an elder statesman. So I would more just like to pick your brain. In fact, I've got a couple
oh
topics
sure,
here that I'd love to talk to you about and get your opinion on. So first
yeah.
off, what exactly is wrong with nostalgia in your opinion? Why do you think there is this built-in abhorrence to sequels of titles long absent from pop culture? Like, what exactly are people mad about it about?
Well, I think my take on it is that everybody's not mad about it. Obviously, I mean that's
Well, yeah, the
just
vocal
part
minority,
of
I guess, would be the term.
that's part of the marketing. I think because there's nothing better to market something than to have conflict, right? So they create conflict in the media in order to help market these titles. I mean, we just had Twisters, right? There was a movie called Twister back in the 90s, and then they had this sequel called Twisters or Reimagining, whatever the hell you want to call it. But was there any outcry about that? Not really. I mean, who cared, right? Have you seen the movie? I mean, it's okay. It's not great or anything.
I
But I
didn't even
think that
think it was
nostalgia
worthy of
gets...
having a remake because, like, it wasn't that entertaining back then.
No, it wasn't. I mean, the big thing back then was it was kind of fast paced and they had a cow fly around. But I mean, the nostalgia is just another tool, right, in the tool belt of Hollywood and everybody else to say, oh, we can't do this, can't do that. But I mean, the reality is it's all a business, and they use that to tweak people, to get people excited, to get people angry, to get people interested in what they're doing. And so all nostalgia is just another tool in the toolbox for to get everybody riled up about things. I think nostalgia is good. I mean, sometimes you don't want to see things redone, just out of the fact that you saw them originally. I mean, think about Star Wars. Everybody's mad at Lucas because he redid the originals and put them back out in theaters at one point, and he keeps changing stuff. And so now all of a sudden we got midichlorians when before the Force was just this ethereal kind of nothing.
I mean, I just thought it was
no
telekinesis.
Explanation. What's that?
I mean, I just straight up thought it was telekinesis. Like, it seemed fine with
Telekinesis.
just being telekinesis.
There you go. Mm-hmm. So everybody gets mad about that. I don't know why. I mean, everything. I think for me at least, it's not so much that I'm angry with nostalgia. I'm angry that there's being so lazy. There's so many stories that are yet to be made. You know what I mean? So go make another one. Don't just go and say, okay, we're going to do Back to the Future with Timothée Chalamet. Who cares? Right? We've already seen Back to the Future. 3 of them, as a matter of fact. Why do it again? Do something else. Do something more interesting. Take it to another level. I mean, that's really what I think, people really want. And they don't really want to have things just constantly rehashed just to make money. Like Twisters, there was nothing about that movie that was new.
Yeah, it was generic when
So
it came out. What was the point?
yeah,
Like,
right.
I feel like that might have been one of the things where they were just going to lose the license, and since they were going to lose the license, they just
Right.
said, you know what, let's do something to show that we still want it. Like, you
We,
obviously don't care about it.
we got the market cornered on tornadoes. Let's do a tornado movie before we lose it. But that's what I think it's all about. It becomes kind of jockeying for position, and like you said, like Sony has to make a Spider-Man movie like every 5 years, or else it loses the license back to Marvel.
You see, they have
And
incentive.
so yeah, and so exactly, so they keep making. So now we've got three different Spider-Man entities, and they brought them into this other, which was kind of fun and whatnot. There's going to be more, but it's a business, and then but they tweak nostalgia to kind of goose the business sometimes. But I don't think nostalgia in and of itself, people find anything wrong with it. It's just and the reality is everything wasn't better. You know what I mean? Everybody loves, oh, it was so great way back when. It's like, no, it sucked. We have way better things now, and the effects are better. Everything's better. The difference is, for me at least, the only difference is at the time that was made, it was original. And now that we've come forward and they're going to remake it, it's not original anymore. So go back to being original. That's the only thing I ask for. I don't care. You can. Everybody has elements of other movies in their movies is kind of a nostalgic touch, or something like that, which is fine. I just think as far as the whole idea, it's just kind of it's just a money grab. I mean, it's like breaking up Harry Potter's final movie into two parts so that they could just gouge you for some more money. It didn't need to be. The Hobbit didn't need to be 3 parts. Come on.
I didn't even know it
It's
was three
all a
parts.
money thing. Yeah, it was 3 parts. That's pretty sure.
I saw the first one. I thought the first one was a little bit of a unique take.
That was 3 parts.
That was
Yeah, Battle of the Five Armies is the last one. I can't remember the second one's title, but
yeah,
anyway,
I legit
Unexpected
don't remember
Journey was
that
the
one.
first one. But that's what that's all about. So, and everybody likes to place it on nostalgia, but nostalgia is not the culprit, So it's just people do like things that they've kind of held dear and so forth. But the reality is, it all. There's been, hundreds of Frankensteins and Wolfmans and Draculas throughout the years. You're not nostalgic for, the first Nosferatu, the first Dracula movie, which looked nothing like a Dracula movie. People are like, oh, that was kind of interesting, but other than that, they moved on and made other stuff. But typically they tweak them a little bit, right? So it tweaks it a little bit. And so, yeah, but I mean, I think that's what we have to do is pop culture is pop culture because each era kind of has something that sticks, right? So, make it your own. I think that's really what I would like for them to do. But, it's a machine, right? And it has to get fed.
Yeah,
And so
technically it is a
sometimes
machine.
you have to feed it with remakes because they're cheaper to do, and so forth. That becomes the difficult part is feeding that machine constantly. And you think about it. I mean, United States is number one in entertainment for the world, right? No one's come up to the level that the U.S. has as far as developing entertainment for people, and on a mass scale. So they have to keep that edge. They want to be the ones out front. They want to be the leader. Hollywood leads the world in a lot of things. Think about smoking, for instance, right? Smoking, was in movies and everything as far back as you can remember, and then in the 90s. It kind of, smoking's bad. We can't smoke anymore. And so then it faded out of the movies, right? They don't have people smoking. Well, you look at old movies, they've even gone back and taken cigarettes out of people's hands in old movies now, or the
That
streaming
still disturbs me.
services.
I still remember the shit they did with the Tom Hanks movie. That was dumb.
I mean, it's ridiculous, and we're moving forward to the point where, to be honest with you, technology wise, we're moving to the point where they can make Back to the Future with any actor they wanted and not have to shoot another movie. They would just scan his head, stick it on Michael J. Fox, change the voice, and you got a whole new movie with a new person. Update all the effects, boom. Back to the Future with whoever, Tom Holland is Marty McFly. So,
Yeah,
and he can still be with Doc, the original Doc. He can still be with the original Doc Brown in the movie. I mean, we can do all this now. It's not overly difficult. And just wait, they'll do it. It'll happen. One of these days, you're going to go to Disneyland or Disney World, and they're going to say, they're going to put you in the movie, and you'll have a clip or whatever that then you can take home. And you'll be part of the movie that you loved as the main character. It's all on its way. So nostalgia is really kind of out the window, I suppose, now that we've talked about it a little bit. Nostalgia will be what we make of it, because the tools are now in existence for us to manipulate just about anything to fit our will. Which, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens to it. I'm not so sure. I don't think I like it. I think it's interesting, but then, it becomes a what is real kind of a situation, right? So
yeah, it seems like nostalgia is more like it's in the eye of the beholder situation.
Mm-hmm.
There can be good nostalgia. There can be bad nostalgia. It seems like what you're trying to say.
Yeah, no, well, definitely. But, the other thing is we're headed into a world where the Mandela effect is every day, because anybody who has the rights, or not even has the rights, has the wherewithal, can change anything to be what they want. So what your memory is going to be the memory of where you saw it, as opposed to my memory is going to be the memory of where I saw it. So it's going to be, constant Mandela effect on these things. I mean, it's already gotten so bad online. So, you peruse the socials, right? So Instagram and Facebook and X and Threads and Blue Sky and all them, right? So you see a movie poster that comes up and it says something's coming soon, right? So many people are making such good fake movie posters that I don't even believe anything that's on there anymore. I'm like, bro, is that going to be a movie? It's not going to be a movie.
The same way, man. I fucking hate. And by the way, this isn't a PG-13 channel, so you can swear.
Okay,
I fucking hate those YouTube channels that make up a trailer with already used footage, but then they make these nice bullshit movie posters for their thumbnail. Clickbait in its truest, sincerest, and purest form, and they actually make money off it. You're literally just taking trailers and pieces of movies and then pretending that, what ifs, this is a what if scenario. It's like, no, you didn't say what if. You said Avengers 5 or Avengers 6 starring like Hugh Jackman or something. Mind you, this is before the Fox merger happened and they got all the Marvel rights back. And I'm like, oh my God, they're finally doing it. They finally stopped fighting each other. Nope, this is a made up bullshit trailer. And
it's all made up.
Yeah, and then the fact that they even got like 15 seconds of my time out of me pisses me off. And then you're going to look at their subscriber count. They got 100,000 or a couple million. Like, all these edits you did, I could have done in less than an hour. You just use words to lie, and now you're getting paid to do it. And this is why I keep telling people not to like overly value social media, or I guess in YouTube's case, the hybridization of social media and legitimate entertainment media. Because when you have people in a system where they are not punished for lying to you, you are always going to run into these issues where no one's going to be able to believe something until they've got a citation loaded up on their screen, or they got a citation out of a book, because there's too many people who profit from lying. YouTube was going to make money with or without these motherfuckers going out there and lying on this stuff. And I hate that they do it. Every time I saw the whole 2015 Back to the Future remake, Back to the Future reboot, and that the actual people who got the rights and license had to remind people, we purposely made it so Hollywood could not go back and touch these movies. We did it on purpose. Anytime you see someone say there's a sequel, a continuation, and we're not involved, it's not going to be called Back to the Future. Everyone is lying. And I'm just like, how out of control did it get? Then I just randomly put it in YouTube. There was like 400 videos of fake Back to the Future reboots and sequels and whatnot. And I'm just like, I'm not mad at them for making sure no one could touch it, because even if they didn't see this coming in the 80s and early 90s when Back to the Future was really booming, they made the right call with making sure they could protect it. But now there's so many other things that just because technology advanced, there's no way we could have protected. Someone can literally call you and pretend to be your mom, disguise their number, and use her voice to get you to give them money. If you told me something like that could happen in the as quickly as the early 2000s, back in like, I don't know, 96, 97, when I was a kid, I would have been like, yeah, which sci-fi TV show did you get that from? You know, that's not real. That's not going to happen, right? Literally almost everything that I've ever seen in a sci-fi movie, I have found out already happened, but on a smaller scale, or is literally being developed and worked on a $1 billion or $100 million scale. 70 to 80%.
Yeah. It's crazy. And so essentially when we stretch it out into the future like that, nostalgia is going to be kind of, gone, because everybody's memories are going to be so scrambled about what they were watching that what your nostalgia takes a large group of people, right? It has to have a large group of people who believe in, who honor this thing from the past. So if everybody's past is so scrambled, there will be no nostalgia anymore, because everybody won't have the same shared experience, right? So there's no shared experience, there's no nostalgia. So eventually, if we keep going down this path, it's going to be, it's not going to be what, it's going to morph into something else. It's not going to be what it is currently. But to me, one of the things that I always worry about with all of the streaming services and Kindle books and everything like that is there's no permanence. You cannot go to the library and grab something off the shelf that no one can change, not easily, right? Yeah. And see what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Everything is fluid. And so everything can be changed if somebody wants to change it, especially the person who, or the entity, the company who owns the original and enforces it. So they can go through and change and change and change. And Lucas did it back in the 90s with Star Wars, and it's just going to continue to happen that way into the future. But the problem is not the entertainment side of things. The problem is the real life things. I've always, this started a while back when I was on a trip somewhere, and they have these speed limit signs that are electronic, and they can change the speed limit on a highway from a remote location. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's not fair, because who's to say that some municipality is not going to have it set at 70 miles an hour. You go blowing by and they change it to 55 and then they pull you over. Now, how can you prove that was 70 miles an hour? Because you have no control over it, right? It's something that is put in place. Same thing is happening with all media. Who's to say that you can say that this happened this way on something, because you have no control over it, no control whatsoever. The ability and so then what are you going to remember? It's crazy. It's crazy that this is so easily manipulated at this point. There's differences in theatrical movies as opposed to whenever they come out of the theater and go into the home environment. They change whole scenes. They change all kinds of stuff nowadays. And to me, not that they have to keep it the same, but you're like, well, I went to the movies and saw this, and now I'm watching it at home, and this didn't happen this way. And so then you're constantly confusing the public, because what you see and what you hear and what you experience is never going to be the same twice. And I think that's bad, because then that plays on people. Yeah. Just like nostalgia plays on people, the constant change can play on people as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, our second question is, is there even a way to discern how A24 keeps figuring out how to make classics and hits with such low budgets, and yet Hollywood will spend 3 times as much and it will still be a gamble on if the movie is successful? Because I actually stopped and did a little bit of extra homework, not just, these are the A24 movies I like, let me go past the surface layer. They're technically not even really a film studio. They're a distributor.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow this distributor has a better track record than 70% of Hollywood. That shouldn't be fucking possible. And I just can't figure out what it is that they're doing. They will share the same actors, share the same directors, share the same writers. But for some reason, this distributor shows up and says, nah, let me show you how it's done. We about to turn into the HBO of movies. And I don't understand it. So I'm curious on what your opinion is.
I'll give you a quick, what my quick assessment is of it is because they don't meddle. Somebody goes, they say, we want to make a movie. Here's what we're going to make. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, go make the movie. And then so they're a distributor, right? So they'll watch it before they'd agree to distribute it. Sometimes I think they do cut deals to where they help finance or something. But basically, by the time it gets to them, they have a product that they can go yes or no to. And so the studios don't. They meddle. They're changing things. They're like, we need, to have, X number of people in this, and we need to have a character that's, a cartoon, perhaps, or, whatever. And so then they're always constantly sticking their fingers in the pudding. And then whenever it turns out bad, they're like, oh, you guys suck. You made a terrible movie. Whereas A24, they get a movie and they're like, is this good or bad? They don't, mess with anything that the people wanted to do. For the most part, I think, and they basically just take it and say, okay, yeah, this is good enough. We're going to distribute this. And the other thing is, I think that they cut people in, right? So there is for creative folks, ownership is a big thing, right? So you want to create something, that is going to be your vision and so forth. And then you also want to create something that's going to go into the future, and you want to reap the benefits of the creation of that. So, I think that's the other reason, is because I believe that since they don't have necessarily the same deep ties to the film itself with the financing and everything, then they can say, make what you want, and if it's good enough, we'll distribute it. And then they hit it out of the park because they've let the artist be the artist. Whereas the movie studios, we know, the Q numbers aren't so good, so we need to have, a cute little kid in this. And it's like, why are they trying to force a cute kid into this story? You know what I mean? It happens constantly, and you watch stuff and you're like, why? They had something good. I watched Alien Romulus the other day, right? Uh-huh. Just an example of kind of kind of a budget movie, right? So a big budget, not a huge budget movie, but a bigger budget movie. And they had a great concept going into that. It looked like Alien. It felt like Alien environment and so forth. It was a little bit different. But 2/3 through the movie, they lost the thread. And they finished the movie. It was, it was an action movie and so forth. But the ending of it was action movie-ish and not what the beginning of the movie was. So the beginning of the movie was really kind of I don't know if you've seen it or not, but beginning of the movie was kind of a relationship between two of the main characters, right? So there's the woman protagonist, and then her brother, who wasn't really her brother, and it all gets explained and so forth. But it was their relationship. And then by the time we get to the end of the movie, it's just kind of explosions and, hey, watch out, aliens are coming and all that kind of stuff, which is fine, but that's not where it started. And so somewhere in between there, they had something that was really a little different for an alien franchise type movie, and it did not come out at the end. And even though it was entertaining, I could tell watching it, I'm like, somebody had different ideas for this movie that didn't come to fruition. But I think with the A24 scenario, they let everything happen, and then they basically are like, we'll get behind this and promote it and so forth and make some money off of it, and you'll make money and we'll make money and everybody's happy. And I think that's why they're so successful, is because they're not getting in the way.
Interesting. So
yeah, that's my thought. I mean, think about it. Amazon doesn't, for the most part, doesn't get in the way. If you look at Amazon as a company, right, they don't get in the way of anything. You want to sell something and have it get to people through Amazon, they're like, hell yeah, we'll take whatever stinking widget, kind of crapola piece of junk you want to sell, and we will use our infrastructure to deliver it to that person's front door, right? They don't care what it is. They just are selling it. And that's the exact same thing they do with A24. They don't care what it is. If it seems that it's saleable, they'll sell it.
Okay, so for me, I think what makes them so, I guess, powerful in a sense, I know it sounds like I'm blowing smoke up them, but if you look at their repertoire, I think for me it's the fact that they almost absolutely refuse to have, for lack of a better term, an established methodology. If I watch one A24 movie in 2018, January, and another one comes out in December, I know they're going to be as different as night and day. They're going to be as different as the Power Ranger movie and Pulp Fiction. Okay? Like, I honestly feel like they're fearless in a sense with who can do what and who can play what. Because here's a lot of things people don't, here's some people, a lot of people forget about. A lot of the characters, besides either being completely and totally new or unknown names technically starring in their movies, they'll still take completely known names and put them in a category and situation that you'll never expect. Now, this might be a little bit of a spoiler for the next question, but I'm just give you a quick example. How many times have you heard somebody say, I think Adam Sandler is a good actor, but I hate most of his comedy movies? Just you can picture someone saying that, because that's how the internet views him essentially. No one ever said, "Oh, Adam Sandler is an asshole." They just said, "Oh my God, his comedy movies they are the definition of hit and miss." And for a lot of people, if you're under the age of 14, they're usually a hit, and if you're above the age of 14, it's usually a miss. I get it on some level, but you have to understand, comedy is just like any form of art. It's not tailor-made for you. It's tailor-made to be perceived by you, which is two different things,
But you think about it, what you described is A24 letting the artist be the artist. Exactly. And they're all different.
And you get to Uncut Gems. This is possibly the only time we've seen him. What's up?
The great movie. Yeah. Adam Sandler was great in Uncut Gems.
You get to Uncut Gems. Great. And he's basically doing something he's only done that 3 times I can remember in his career. Spanglish. Technically the second act of Click, when he was basically going through his realization of, oh shit, I'm ruining my life by obsessing over things that are immaterial. And the third being here, Uncut Gems. And you see it from different perspectives. This man is essentially a chameleon as far as I'm concerned at this point. He knows how to do it. And then 2-3 years later, I didn't see it, but I know about it. He did that movie where he wasn't sure if he was hallucinating with a spider alien in space. I'm like, what the fuck, Adam? Why are you just now doing all these epic roles? Why didn't you do this shit 10 years ago? But
because people wouldn't let him.
Probably. Look, I believe it.
You got to make money. That's the deal. So
Yeah, I
he
mean,
was
he's
making
grossed
money
over
for
$1
these other
billion,
things.
but here's the thing, though: he didn't gross it by doing serious and dramatic roles. So I would be
Oh,
leery of him too.
yeah.
But and then and I just think to myself, like, man, I think the reason they're so successful at what they're doing is because they don't have, or either, we all know that we don't know who they are, but we know that test audiences exist. We all do.
Hmm.
But the main thing is that I think that even if they do have their test audiences, they don't give them as much power and authority as maybe the marketing teams do or these big corporations do in general. Because there has to be some, I hate to sound like a stereotype, secret sauce that they have figured out. Because if you stop and think about it, one of the biggest complaints people have been saying is that movies don't need to cut between who's speaking as much as they do. The camera doesn't need to cut every 5 seconds or 6 seconds just because someone said one statement. They also said that, they are longer, which is a little bit nice so the movies can breathe a little bit. But at the same time, oh, we don't need these overcrowded and insane budgets. Like, well, you say that, but then when they don't spend a shit ton of money on marketing, they can make the best movie of the year and nobody sees it and it's not going to get a sequel or it's going to fade out of memory and existence. Cult classics, that's why I think cult classics exist. Cult classics exist because a movie was really, really good, but a lot of people didn't see it, and the movie company was able to build a franchise off of it without even making a new entry. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a goth woman wearing, excuse me, fucking Jack Skellington something on their body. How many times
Yeah.
I've gone into Walgreens or a dollar store near October, November, and Jack Skellington is every fucking where. Quite literally, he is a one character franchise in and of himself. And that's
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but that can't happen if the movie wasn't good. So I think A24, without trying, is literally trying to build a library of cult classics on purpose. That's my theory. However, we'll never truly know because according to people who work there, they just think that they want to help distribute and fund good independent movies. And I'm just in the pair like, nah, you got to be doing something else with this track record. They're not even at 200 movies yet, so it's pretty easy to watch every A24 movie in a month. They're not even at 200 movies yet, and that level of quality is insane to think about. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's just me. So for our
Yeah.
final,
I think that this is a formula that worked in the past. So as we've, come through time here into the 90s, basically in the 2000s and so forth, we've got, they've always done test audiences, right? But they haven't always placed the importance on them, I don't think, as they do now. And I think that's part of the difference. Because if you look, I mean, you think about classic movies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a lot of them weren't, overly tested or pushed on the numbers or whatever, and so we've gotten to the age where they just want to crunch numbers and they're like, well, if we do this, then we're gonna, make more money, and so then they start, Frankensteining stuff together, as opposed to just letting the original idea from the script, flow through to the end. And I think that that may be what A24 is doing, and that's what has happened in the past. And so it a lot of you've heard the tales where they're like, I don't care what the people said, we're just going to leave it as is and put it out there. That doesn't happen so much anymore. They're always like testing and testing. What is this? What is that? What's everybody's got to have a Stanley Cup in their hand or some shit, in this scene because we're, pushing Stanley Cups for the masses now. And so, it gets so convoluted that no one's going to, it's never going to be great. It's just going to be there. It's just going to be mildly entertaining, but not rewatchable and not, terribly interesting or anything. And I think sometimes they shoot for the middle on purpose because they're like, okay, this will make money, We're going to have, I think of, this isn't a movie, but a lot of things nowadays will, pick and choose their people. Like, so we have to have a strong female. We have to have, a nerdy guy. We have to have this. We have to have that. And so they piece together these teams of, disparate people. But if it's not part of the story, then it just doesn't work. You're just pulling together, or they have to put a star in there, and then the star doesn't work because it's not really their forte. You know what I mean? You can't force things. Certainly you can kind of nudge things, but if you force them, then everybody's going to figure it out, and they're going to go, well, this is, a bunch of crap, and move on, and that's why I think you see things moving through the theaters so fast, because, it just didn't perform. And then they're like, okay, well, we'll make it up when we release it onto the streaming services or to home streaming. That's just the way it goes. So I think that the hands-off approach is probably what's making them more successful. That, and they get to see a product before they put it out. So, a lot of the studios for other things don't get to do that. They don't see the product until it's finally created during the process. And it's so easy to goof up the process. And I think they do that a lot.
Got you. Okay, well, with that being said, that brings us into our ultimate question. Favorite movie of the past 10 years and what made them so special for you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a tough question. I've been racking my brain on this.
Limit three, because we could be here all day. Limit 3.
Well, the last 10 years, I may, if I can come up with 3, that's going to be difficult, I think, because I don't, movies, they do event movies, which, I think a lot of movies are decent enough to watch. But when you're talking about, like, favorite movies that I'm going to take with me into the future and maybe go back and watch again, in the last 10 years, there's not really a lot of them. There's nothing that's really struck me hard that says, this is so interesting that I need to, hold on to this and so forth. I'm trying to really think. I'll tell you what, this is going to be a weird one, but I'll say it. But Into the Spider-Verse is a cartoon, right? And I thought that
is not weird, sir. That is a good choice.
Oh, good. I thought it was so well made and so interesting and so different, right? And I watched it, and that's something that I will watch again, because it really was, I think, even though it is a cartoon, an extremely well made movie. And it's not, you throw the cartoon stuff out the window. It didn't matter. The story was there. It was funny. It had it all. And I think that was one that really struck me as something over the last few years that was really handled. It was definitely a movie that's going to be something that people talk about, in another 20 years, because it was so interesting to watch and to be involved with. But, most people would say, well, it's a cartoon or something, but I think that cartoon had way more going for it story-wise than
that logic. A good movie's a good movie. Yeah. Period.
Yeah, most movies that came out. I mean, I was looking forward to the new Dune movie. I like science fiction, and it was fine. I mean, it wasn't anything great, And it had a good director and they had a good cast and all that, but it was like, it was not epic, and it will not be something that you will talk about. They'll make another Dune. They'll remake it again before that thing catches on, I think. Now I'm talking about the negative. I got to come up with the positives, right? So,
yeah.
But but what about you? Spur me on here a little bit. What's one of your movies?
Okay, so my 3, surprising no one, going back to the A24. I believe it was called Moonlight or Moonlight Serenade. Let me pull that name up. because I just had a list of A24 movies in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I can cut shit out via editing, so there's no dead time. Okay, here we go. So for me, my number one was, make sure I get the name right. Yeah, it is Moonlight. It's just Moonlight. Came out 27/6, starring Mahershala Ali. Mahershala.
Okay.
I swear I met a guy whose name was Mahershala one day, and now I'm really curious if it was him because that's such a rare name. So I liked it because, don't get me wrong, I am very well aware, and I think everyone is, there's a Hollywood cliche, and we all know there's some overlaps with stereotypes. But for the most part, at least in this day and era, barring few exceptions, looking at you, Blue Blood, nothing is really meant to be necessarily directly offensive. It's just a setting. Okay? It's just a classic cliche setting, but it does have its roots in a stereotype. Now, Moonlight is essentially about a drug dealing, minority living in a shit neighborhood. I was like, okay, well, I'm already bored at the premise. I'm not calling it racist or anything, but I'm bored at the premise.
Right.
Because that's like saying, oh, there's a new TV show about cops coming. I was like, wow, I wonder what new thing they're going to do. Absolutely nothing. But when my friends told me, like, no, listen, the main character is solely responsible for getting his own wife addicted to drugs. And the movie's about him trying to deal with it. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen or even heard those words in a sentence for a piece of entertainment. So I was like, oh, well, now you kind of got my interest. And I think really that's what word of mouth or a good trailer is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you curious about how the story's going to play out. And mission accomplished. So also on top of it, his son is watching this happen. Their son is watching this happen. And he's trying to explain to him, son, like, why this is happening and all of this. And, he's realizing he's the bad guy, but this is one of those, I'm the reluctant bad guy. He's not trying to make her worse. He's trying to make her better. He's trying to keep her from getting thrown out of jail. He's trying to keep her from getting more drugs. And it is a genuine struggle, and it is a believable struggle. That's why I like Moonlight. That Moonlight made me feel some kind of way that I didn't think I could feel for such a generic, and I mean generic, setting. And I appreciate it. And that's why it stuck with me for all this time. That movie came out in 2016. So technically, it barely got into the past 10 years. In 2 years, it would have been disqualified. Or really, next month, it would have been 1 year away from disqualification.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Now, the next one, I didn't expect to hit me the way it did. It didn't really hit me full force until I got to the ending. And I got a little bit choked up. I almost cried. I'm not even joking. So I'm a big fan of Bo Burnham. But I'm not a fan of him just because, he's a funny guy. I'm a fan of Bo Burnham because I understand his personality, I think. I'm not going to say I know the guy personally. A lot better than a lot of other just comedians or famous people. Because if you actually look at how he speaks and everything, he's not trying to entertain you and then plug a product. He's like, hey, nice to meet you. I don't know how I got here. I don't think I deserve to be here. I don't think I did anything special. And this level of praise and notoriety terrifies me, not because people bother me, but because, well, everything I previously just stated. And I can get that. It's basically imposter syndrome. He has an unending imposter syndrome. And that guy disappeared for almost 10 years. Like literally, he got famous for 4 or 5 years, did a TV show, did like 3 comedy specials, and then he disappeared for almost like 8 to 10 years straight. Then out of nowhere, right before, 2 years before, the world gets cooties, we find out, he's a director and writer for an A24 film called The 8th Grade. Now, I read initially, nobody in the cast is famous, essentially. Bo Burnham is the real pull for this movie on paper. But I don't know who the casting director is, but they should have gotten an award just for that shit. Because literally everyone in that movie is essentially a nobody, except for the writer-director Bo Burnham, who hasn't done any writing of this scale or directing of this scale his entire career. And in his first try, this man makes a story that sounds so generic. It basically sounds like Mean Girls if it was in grade school. But instead of going after the mean girls, we see someone obsessed with trying to get into the cool girls, aka the mean, arrogant Kardashian club. And she tries to get away from herself, treat herself like a piece of shit, think that she's a lesser person, and her dad's telling her the whole entire time, hey, listen, you are a beautiful existence. Me and your mother did something right with you. And like any asshole generic stereotype, she just goes, shut up, Dad. It's like your dad's complimenting you and telling you're a good kid, and you're just going, shut up, Dad. And then to top it off, it's just so fucking deep. And then when you get to the end of it, because this girl she was trying to impress this whole time actually has a crush on her. The parents have a crush on each other. So the biggest asshole that you want to, in the cool kids group that you can't get a part of, the leader of it, the parents have a crush. Her dad has a crush on this girl's, the antagonist, and I use that term loosely, fucking mother, who's single. And she's always just being rude and all this other shit, but it's not played up for comic. It's like, this is what an actual 8th grader is feeling when she's trying to find a place to fit in, when she's trying to get along and everything. And I'm just like, wow, this story sounds boring as hell. But hey, I like Bo Burnham. Let me go see it. And I was so happily surprised. By the end of the movie, they don't show you her in high school because at the time, Elsie Fisher, she's not magically going to turn into an 18-year-old. But you see her slowly go through time. You saw her essentially awaken from an 8th grader and realize, hey, listen, people are assholes, but just because they're an asshole doesn't mean that you have to become those assholes. And she couldn't even properly curse this girl and chastise her out. Like literally, and this is what really made me think it was deep. They went over to the scene where she finally snaps and says, fuck you. I'm going to do all this stuff, and I'm going to tell you all. She can't even look at the girl. The camera even shows that she's looking down basically at her knees and her feet and saying, you're a piece of shit, you're an asshole and all this crap. And then she walks off really fast. And then it just cuts to her growing up, having a better relationship to her dad. And I was like, man, I really hate that I cannot properly describe this movie without giving away too many spoilers. But that's basically all I can say. I know it sounds ambiguous, but it is the definition of a coming of age story if it wasn't made by people trying to appease a PG-13 audience.
Gotcha. Reality.
Yeah. Like, because what is the biggest problem with every coming of age story from the 80s all the way up to next week? They always try to make it so the lesson is learned before the person actually grows up, and every relationship they have with their parents and significant others is peaceful and pleasant and generic as fuck. No, that's not how it's. Coming of age is sloppy, it's messy, and it's nasty. And you could have nothing but support and loving parents, and you could still end up getting groomed by a dumbass because they told you they love you and they weren't related to you, so they weren't obligated to. Like, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm not the oldest person in the world, but I can call off a few friends as a child and a minor or a teenager, and I had to tell them, hey, listen, yo, they obviously are shady and they're up to something. They don't love you and care about you. They just want something from you. And I can tell you, no matter how nice their family is or how much money they came from, they didn't listen because as far as they're concerned, they don't know no better. So
that's wild.
Yeah, exactly. It's more like spoiled mixed with naivete. So
yeah,
when I saw this movie, I was like, man, I can call some people who are basically just like this. They completely switched up just to try to get into a cool kids club, only to be not remembered or to not even be able to maintain interest. And then they shot away all their friends, and years later they come up to me and go, hey, listen, I'm sorry I did blah, 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 blah. It was stupid. I don't know if you want to be friends or not, but I am sorry for what I did and I regret it. Like, I like 8th Grader because it's a realistic version of a coming of age story. The main character is not perfect, nothing like that. Now, for my last choice, and yes, I am technically avoiding the Marvel related shit because, that's more happiness and nostalgia all rolled into one, but we're talking more serious cinematic things. It disturbed me that I even liked this movie. It's a Ryan Gosling movie. I need the name of it.
Lars and the Real Girl?
Was it the one where he was like in some Asian country doing really crazy shit?
Oh, no, that's a different one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it.
No, he did one where he was in love with a doll called Lars and the Real Girl, which is kind of wild.
Oh, yeah. So, La La Land I'm going to give an honorable mention, and just to say it real quick, I won't go into details, because La La Land is a type of movie that we have been told for years and decades would not be possible to be profitable. We know they exist in so many other countries, especially India, but we were told it was not. And the fact that it worked and no one noticed that Ryan Gosling can't sing was beautiful. I love that movie.
Right.
I want to get a sequel. But the actual third one is Only God Forgives. That's what it was called, I believe. Ryan Gosling
Only
goes to
God forgives.
Thailand. He's from a family of drug traffickers, and he's obsessed with trying to impress his family. But the thing is that he's developed, sick habits, and is a complete and total, disturbing individual. He's often trying to bang people who ain't legal, and they don't shy away from him. Like, even in the first 10 minutes of the movie, he's like, "Hey, give me somebody younger." Well, she's 18. You ain't got nobody younger? I was like, what? Hearing that come out of Ryan Gosling's mouth.
Right. Yeah, because he's, A-lister kind of guy.
Yeah, so when you see something this dark, and then if you actually look at the ratings, technically it didn't do that well. But here's the thing. It didn't do that well because it was a terrible movie. It didn't do that well because the story concept disturbed people, and it didn't have proper acknowledgement to the audience. What I mean by that is it doesn't properly tell you exactly what the fuck is going on, so you have to put pieces of shit together. They were trying to be too artistic, but the thing is, I still enjoyed it. It was dark, it was fucked up. It took me to places that make me feel sick, and a lot of people forget the point of a movie is to make you feel something. Yes, it's artistic and you should enjoy it, but it's trying to make you feel something based on what they're trying to portray. And they tried to portray a sick bastard in a fucked up world, and they succeeded. That's why I like it. And even when some of the characters are going to die, they don't even talk like they didn't see it coming. They talk like they expected it as an inevitability because they know they were a fucked up individual benefiting from fucked up fucking over people. Because remember, he's coming from an actual drug trafficking family. And in American cinema, what is the traditional drug trafficking family? They're extremely rich and they look nice, but they have a dark side. Someone pisses them off. They hire someone to chase them and kill them, and they somehow magically know every place they're going to be in the entire movie. They didn't do that. They did the opposite. He was there himself, building up the infrastructure, but he was getting out of hand. Mommy Dearest comes over. She tries to fix things, not realizing that she made it worse, and everyone knows where she is. And it just comes to this dark ending that I still don't properly understand. I won't even spoil it necessarily. I will just say I didn't understand it. Ryan Gosling's character chooses to willfully get either both or one of his fucking hands cut off.
Oh my gosh.
There's nobody holding him down. They didn't kidnap him. He just puts out both of his hands, closes his eyes, then it fades to black.
Oh, wow. He makes the sacrifice, huh?
I still don't understand it, but I enjoy it to the point of I know I'm never going to get a movie quite like this ever again. At least in the modern era. So it was just so interesting to me. And also half the cast is actually from Thailand. So they didn't just magically play hey, let's put these people here who don't actually exist here and pretend that this makes sense. Don't get me started on Gods of Egypt. Don't get me started. Gods of Egypt, and the main god is played by Jamie Lannister, because that's a smart idea. Like, and I feel bad for some of these people, because you got to understand, it's been openly acknowledged that a lot of Hollywood directors and writers, they can't get people to play things because whoever's at the top, they want an A-lister, and most A-listers, let's be honest, they're Caucasian. And I'm not saying that's like through some type of inner cabal, maybe back in the past, but we're coming out of that a lot, and we're a lot better for it. But a lot of them, it's like the corporate aspects. They don't care about the artistic people. They don't care about the director and writer. No. Dennis Villeneuve said he couldn't get the people he wanted to play in Dune, and he didn't even try because he knew that corporate aspects of Hollywood would not let him. And they asked him, what does he mean? He's like, what do you mean? What do I mean? This whole movie is basically about Middle Eastern culture. And you just see the sea of white people just realizing this shit. I'm like, the planet's called Arrakis. Take off the kiss, and what do you got? Iraq. What is the native language that these people speak? The same native language is found in Iraq. What are the nicknames for all the characters? Lisan al-Gaib. Does that sound American to you?
No, it's not. You're right.
The one that's surprising to me is that the Harkonnens, no one could figure out what the fuck they were supposed to be based off of. But, you have to go back to the old books and whatnot. And he said in an interview, he's like, okay, so the entire conflict is based off of Russia learning how deep the true Middle East was. Because, Russia's favorite thing to do was steal resources from any place that they could. But to be honest, I'm not acting like anybody else is innocent. A lot of people like to do that. But they were trying to go after oil in the Middle East, and they created a bunch of chaos. They did whatever they wanted to that planet. The Arrakis is Iraq during the time of Russia, the Harkonnens coming in and stealing resources without asking permission, and also trying to do whatever they wanted to the people. That's what Dune is based off. The entirety of Dune is based off of the conflict between Iraq and people trying to invade it and take shit from it, including the Russians and a couple of others. So why is Dave Bautista playing a legitimate Russian or an approximation of a Russian? And it all started making sense. He said it. They wouldn't let me do this. They would not let me do this if it was just people, because their excuse would be, oh, there's no A-lister, no one's going to go see it. Dune, one of the most popular works of science fiction to this day, has the most references in all of science fiction. If you hear the word spice, Dune. If you see a sandworm, Dune. There have been over 60 sandworms that have shown up in pop culture, and they all came from Dune. Spice is even in Star Wars.
Right. Yeah.
There's an entire half season of a Star Wars show that is about spice and spice production.
Yeah, everybody minds the
yeah, and then the top
minds everything else.
And here's the ironic part. That's almost all of sci-fi. The only time sci-fi truly got a big name attached to it was Blade Runner and fucking the sequel to Blade Runner. They got Harrison Ford, and they also got Ryan Gosling. Almost any other time sci-fi did really well, it was a bunch of no names. Star Wars, a bunch of no names.
Yeah. Yep.
Star Trek, when it first came out, literally everyone was a no name.
Right. So, they're all character people.
Yeah, and this is what I mean about there's not a proper balance between the artistic and the corporate side. Because if that's the reason he didn't even try to get people like that, I'm a little bit sad. Because now no one will ever get the Dune they truly deserve. But at the same time, hey, it was a novel. So theoretically, you were supposed to be making shit up in your head in the first place.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, and
it's a bunch of novels. Yeah.
Yeah, and honorable mention specifically Dune 2. The first one, yes, it's a good movie, but it's the hero's journey. Let's not bullshit. It's the hero's journey.
Right.
But when you get to 2, that's when shit got real. That's when I started realizing, well, damn, this is going to go to those dark places that we didn't truly understand and know about with a budget befitting of Frank they're going to portray, or what stories from the books they're going to portray, but they're trying to do it respectfully, and I can appreciate that, because Dune 2 could have gone so many ways. It could have gone so many ways, but if you really think about it, it was a story about training, and it ends with a couple backstabs and betrayal. Because what did he say in the first movie and all through the first half of the second movie? I don't want what you're giving me. What I want to do is, at this point, I just want to destroy the Harkonnens because they came in my family. I don't want this title. I don't want to run nothing. Fuck all of this shit. He even had nightmares about it. Then you get to the end of the movie, complete 180.
Right.
So the way I'm looking at it, they're doing the material justice as best as they can, given that they're not able to cast the people that they need to and want to.
Right. Yeah. But, definitely. Yeah, there's.
Hello.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something there, so I stopped. A movie that I liked within the last 10 years is called Parasite. Have you seen Parasite? It's about it's Bong Joon-ho, who was director.
And then, what was it, like 2 years later, like the main character fucking got murdered from a scam or something? Man, I really want to see that.
I think so. But it's an interesting movie about class.
Movie of the year.
It was Palme d'Or,
from
in
the perspective
2019.
Of a con artist. Yeah.
Yeah. But basically, it's a class movie. Dark. So you talked about Dune and so forth, and this is a class movie. So why do some people get everything and some people get nothing? and then what do you do when you've got nothing, and how do you, you know, play within the class structure that gets set up. And it's really a fascinating movie. You know, it's a foreign movie, right? It's not an American made movie. It's not got any American actors in it or any people that you would even recognize their names, right? And but it is such an interesting movie to see, where basically this one person is, you know, one person of the family gets into this more wealthy family, and then they start bringing in their parents and their siblings to do things for them, so that essentially the thing is, it's the name Parasite really is a dual thing. So are the people who are preying upon the rich, conning them, are they the parasite, or are the rich a parasite on the poor? If you think about it that way, right? Because it takes all these poor people to bolster the rich people, and so the rich people could be the parasite. So it's a duality. What's that?
No, I said, which is very realistic if you stop and think about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's just a fascinating movie if you see it. And so I'd say in the last 10 years, that's one of the ones. And I remember watching it and thinking, what an interesting concept, and what an interesting way to portray the class structure that is happening at this point. I think over in Korea or Vietnam. I can't remember which one now. I have to look and see. But yeah, it was just such a good movie and so well made that it's something that you should check out.
It's a Korean movie. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of an echo there. So
listening. Oh, sorry. I was just saying that, yeah, it's a Korean movie. So for anyone who's listening, I just want y'all to know, you know, a lot of these movies we will try to have links to the trailer for in the description. And I hope you all get to enjoy them in some way, shape, and form. Or if you're not sure if any of these movies are good, that's okay. Watch them. Expand your horizon. You literally lose nothing by finding out if a movie is going to be good. In fact, that's how most people find out if a movie is good. They actually watch it.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that being said, Static, I definitely appreciate you coming through. It's always nice to, you know, do anything in a space like this with a legitimate veteran or a legend. And, you know, if you ever want to do anything in the future, or if you want to be on my Life Stories show, feel free to let me know, because we love those kinds of stories. And why don't you tell the audience real quick again where they can find you?
Sure. You can find us at staticradio.com, at Static Radio on all the socials, if you care to. And we do a weekly show. And hopefully it is at least funny. If it's not funny, at least it's a bit strange or weird. So tune in and find out.
All right. With that being said, I appreciate you coming, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.